Hi, everybody. Welcome to Whip Finish Wednesday. We're going to tie up some Guide's Choice hairs here tonight. So here's Johnny.
Well, welcome everyone to another fabulous Wednesday night where we're going to sit around and tell lies and tie some flies and just have a wonderful time. Hopefully, greetings, Bill Brashears. Um, and hopefully, some of you might learn a thing or two. Or Ray.
All right,
Uh,
that
we,
wasn't
see, we,
John.
we try to
That was me. I was
surprise our favorite cat friend.
Here's Johnny.
We try to surprise our favorite cat friend. And hey, Dan from Denver. So as we're waiting on everyone to log on, I wanted to spend just a second to remind everyone or to tell the y'all that are new kind of what we do at our show called Whip Finish Wednesday. Katie and I tie up a pattern or two, and usually we'll tie two or three of the pattern. And what's up, Tom? And we'd love it if you email us. If you try to tie it, you don't have to have all the right materials done to be perfect. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. But if you will tie the fly, take a picture of it, you can either email it to us at demuthflyfishing@gmail.com, or you can tag us in the photograph on Instagram. And then during the next show, typically we'll share all the photographs. And it makes it just more of a community. We like to hang out and see what you all are tying because I've gotten quite a few, or Katie and I have gotten quite a few photographs of fish over the years that you guys have tied, or flies that you guys have tied that have caught fish. And they've been like, hey, look at this fish I caught on this fly that you guys showed me. And it has been absolutely awesome. So I've loved seeing those pictures. So to share a little bit of that, we all like to share each other's flies. Helena, hello, Barry, Josh, and Gary. Howdy from Southern Colorado. Bill, Dan, and Mike. Good, Mike. I thought you were going to be busy this evening. What's up, Mark? So Katie and I have just got back from a baseball game, watching John Christopher play our little slugger. But what's up, Todd Turner? Todd, you need to come up. Speaking of Denver, who was it? Gary, and Dan. I know there's a bunch of you that watch us that are on the West Coast. There is a chance we're working on scheduling here, but there's a chance that Katie and I might be back in Denver in April. And if that happens, I don't want to spoil anything or to let the cat out of the bag. But if that happens, we hope that everyone that is within, what do you think, 700 miles, 600 miles?
I'm sorry. I wasn't listening.
Welcome to my life.
I tuned you out. Last thing I remember was here's Johnny.
There you go. Hopefully you guys can come and join us. Katie is just completely. You're just going on it, aren't you?
I'm so sorry.
you're just.
So sorry.
So that was Steve Yates's fly that you were just showing, but
it was.
Here's Johnny.
Yeah,
there you go.
I meant to show here's Johnny.
John Lorenus in Bluff City. Oh, this is John from Tailwater. Is it Tailwater Fly Co? Our brand newest fly shop in our area. John is he is the owner over there, and I'm really looking forward to getting over there and seeing that shop. Apparently, that is our one real fly tying shop, and we've never had like one that is a fabulous fly shop. And I've talked to a handful of I don't want to say guides, but people in the industry that have talked about this shop, and they've said it is spot on, and it's got a great fly tying section. So I'm looking forward to getting out there. Maybe we could do our live show. Well, it's hard to do a live show there, but maybe we could run over there and do a live show.
Maybe
Gary's old enough to remember too. Here's Johnny. Don't forget Johnny Carson. That's what I thought you were talking. I thought you were introducing me like Johnny Carson, not that guy.
No, here's Johnny. Like here's Johnny from The Shining.
So normally what I try to do is I try to tie one variation of the fly, then we share some pictures. So let's flip over to.
Wait,
Okay,
where's the new fly shop?
it's
Someone
in Bluff
asked.
City. It is at the so if you've ever floated the South Holston River, it is at the bottom of like where if you float the whole thing, it's where you take out Bluff City by the ball fields, from what I've been told. But I have not I haven't been there. Maybe we'll go there tomorrow. We'll go there tomorrow. John, are you usually there? Or do you have like 35 employees and it's just like exact like wherever you like to go? Who knows? Um, so yes, Dan, April in Denver, and let's just say the person's shop rhymes with Marley. Hmm. And Fumqua might be having an event there, but the whole thing, I don't know. It's up in there, like I said, on our part. So here's the God's Choice Hares here that we're going to whip up a quick variation. And the first one I'm going to do is going to be a little bit different than this one. I'm going to do it a little bit more traditional. So this has a excuse me, a Hungarian partridge tail, as well as a Hungarian partridge soft hackle, hare, and partridge, and you even have the wing case on the correct side, if you notice. So it's all just right. But we're going to do a traditional one, and then we're going to switch everything up just a little bit. So I'm going to get started. We've got baked potatoes in the oven, and we have chicken in the oven as well. And Katie just now went over to check on that. So give me 1 second to have her get back. But I'm going to use the first one we're going to harvest from an actual hare's mask. So if you have one of these zirconium fancy little rakes, that's great. If you don't, no problem. But we're going to use this actual mask right here. I wish I could change the picture over, but I can't. So while we're waiting on Katie, we're going to use the Umpqua, that one, the XC400BL, and it's size 14 with a 3.5 millimeter slotted tungsten bead. Katie knows it's going to take me a second to get my glasses on and get a bead on the hook, and she just found the perfect time to step away. So the cool thing about this fly is it's been around, I think, since the 90s officially. But if you look at like how this fly is built, this is kind of like the backbone for a lot of new Euro nymphing flies, a lot of like flies that are out right now. But it's been around for a long time. The only thing I'll say, God's Choice usually means like it's a guide fly. But this is not the easiest fly to tie, but this is one of the first like somewhat complicated fly that I tied that I had a lot of success with. So so a really nice pattern. And Katie's just not getting set back down, but I'm going to start off with the fluorescent bright red Semperfli classic wax thread and 12-aught, so red thread. And start right behind the bead. And I'm going to have Katie switch it over to the time desk here. So the first thing we do is get a tail. So I'm going to get the tail off of this hare's mask right here. And this one came from, and maybe eventually it'll come from the tailwater place, but this one came from from Hunter Banks over in Asheville. But this is just a hare's mask, natural brown.
Why isn't it called a hare's mask? God Choice.
Because you can use rabbit foot. You can use whatever you want, whatever part of the. I just
ear?
like. Do what?
Hare's ear.
You could use hare's ear, absolutely. I just like the mask because it's a little bit spikier. If I'm saying that correctly. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, what we're going to do first is get the tail off. So I'm going to work my thread back to the back here of the hook bend. And these things are kind of hard when you first get them, and they're hard when they're basically always kind of hard kind of papery. If you'll just like fold it up like this, like bend it in half, you'll be able to get like a little piece there. And like I said, this is more the first one we'll do is more the traditional version of it. Scissors. So I'm going to kind of fan this out, get just a little piece here. And same as I always say, less is more. Just use my scissors to kind of tease everything away. Pull off a little bit. And I've got more than I need right there. So this will be our tail here. There's a lot with a lot of success. I'm telling you. Oh, and here's Misha coming over. She's like, "Oh, did you say something about rabbit face? I love rabbit face, don't you?" She's yeah.
Yep.
She's right here. As long as you don't knock over a camera, you can hang out all you want to. Yeah.
She's like, I'm sure I'm hungry.
All right, so I'm gonna take the mask or the little piece I pulled off, grab it just by the tips because I don't need to tie all this stuff in right here. See that? I can flick it off, or I can get my comb that is right here. I'll scrape out all the junk out of there, and now we're left with like a nice little tail. And let's switch over to the hook itself. Like that. All right, so we got our little tail here. I'm gonna bring it, pull out just a little bit of the long pieces, and maybe if there's a kind of a crummy piece there. You see our tail there. Grab it just by the tip because we don't want our tail super long. Do a little pinch wrap, pull it back, and we'll see how that's looking. And that's maybe a touch on the long side even. So we'll do the same thing again, shorten it up a bit. Got to get it right for the old YouTubes. Now I'm going to work my thread right back up to the front, keeping all my materials on top of the hook shank. And we'll cut off the butt ends there. Maybe. Big maybe. Oh, I see it in the camera. If you have never tied, if you think you're a good fly tyer and you've never tied with a camera like that, then try it. It makes it a little bit more difficult. So now we've got our official rabbit tail. Okay, so I've got it already pulled off from tying the flies I tied yesterday. 2 pieces, and you can use crystal flash if you want to, and that's all you have to use. But I'm going to steal a trick out of the blowtorch, which is Devin Olson's pattern, and I'm going to pull off a piece of 7X tippet as well as a piece of flash. You can see that I'm going to try to get them roughly the same length. I'm going to tie them at the same time. And guys, ask whatever questions you want. See how capture that on top, pull it to length, a couple of wraps, pull a little bit more. And I'm going to pull the flash on my side and get the tippet on your side. And I'll explain this part because this is something that most people can kind of understand, but I think when people are teaching fly tying, it's not done very well. So my flash, if you're looking down the fly like this, my flash is going to go under the fly and make a wrap over like this because I'm going to wrap it the opposite direction of my thread. My tippet that's going to reinforce everything is going under the fly and wrapping over like this. So what I'm doing is my first wrap is is under the fly, as opposed to, I want to exaggerate this a bit, but as opposed to my first wrap being like this and going over the tail, and see how it does that. And like I said, I exaggerated it, but I mean, you don't have to worry about the flash messing up your tail. And Bill, the bead is a 3.5 millimeter bead. And typically for a size 14, I use 3.5 millimeter, and typically for a 16.3 and 18, 2.5 millimeter on jig hooks. So now, like I said, we're going to do this kind of the old-fashioned way. Let's switch back over to the side here. So if you don't have a rake, no problem. You can just grab it and pull. like this. Just go and just kind of randomly pull it from different areas, because the mask itself is going to have different types of fur depending on where you pull it from. So you don't want it all like super spiky from the ear, but you also don't want it all super fluffy from the cheeks. So kind of rotate where you grab your fur from. So we'll do it like that, and then we'll, just for the fun of it, since we've got this, we'll use this rake. Let's get right up in between the eyes here. Just pull this up. See how that really gets it from the bottom. And they got a lot more of the fluff off, so I'm going to drop it. So pull this off. And the next ones, after we finish with this one, we'll use pre-packaged dubbing. So now we've got a nice little bunch here, and that's enough probably for a couple flies. And if I was going to tie a bunch of these all at one time, I would go ahead and scrape off or clip off or get the dubbing that I needed for, you know, a dozen flies or 2 dozen flies, however many I wanted to do. That way the color was kind of consistent. But right now I'm just going to kind of cord those together, just mix them together so they're ready to go. So you see how I've got that dubbing there. So now we pull our thread out. Good job on the transition. Nan would be very impressed, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do a thin noodle. So the key thing is just using small pinches of dubbing. There can be a slight taper in it if you'd like, but that's probably way too much dubbing. I've got that much left, so I've got enough for at least one more fly. Assuming I'm correct that that's way too much dubbing. So we've got our thread right by the bead. Now we're going to bring it back so that the dubbing starts right at the tail. Try to get some of that dubbing off my hand. You see, Nan is watching. All right, so we'll get it, like I said, really thin. Bring it up. I want it super, super thin, but I'll bring it up like this. You know what? That's a little too thin at the very back. I can see a little bit too much red. So bring it up like this, back. There we go. So a very thin body. You got just the right amount. So you see how that's nice and spiky. That's what we pulled off. We're not going to do anything with it. So now I'm going to take my bobbin cradle. I'll take my hackle gauge off so it doesn't make much noise when I switch it back and forth. Bring it over here to the side. I don't worry about a half hitch or anything. I just lay my bobbin there. And I'm going to counter wrap. So I'm going the opposite direction with the flash. So just like this. All the way up to the front. You don't have to like be too specific or anything with this. Switch it back over to the hook. But now I'm going to go one over that, one in front. So when to lock it in, then I'm just going to wrap back over what I just did. And I'll cut that out. And I'm going to put this, because oh no, I'm not going to. I'll throw that away because we're live and we're trying to be all fancy. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing, put my bob in the bobbin cradle in the opposite direction. I'm going to turn my vise with the tippet and go right up just like this. And as you all know, I am not a big fan unless I have to use of super glue. So this is a good, although I don't know if you would use super glue at all on this pattern, but there we go. That gives us all the security we would need. And now I'll take this piece of tippet, let's switch over to the side again. And I take my little vise pond here. Just if you don't have one, just a little magnet. And that keeps it from getting lost, because flash and little things get lost quite often. So now I've got this piece of literally, like most people, they'll say get a peacock eye, and that's much better. Get whatever kind of peacock. This is like junk peacock. This isn't nature spirit. This is just regular old I don't know where this came from. This is a junk peacock. So I'm gonna grab two that look pretty good, pull them out, set that aside. I'm gonna trim off the tips. And now we'll go back to the hook. And I've got the two pieces of peacock there. We'll hold it at an angle, wrap in with a loose wrap, pull it to length. Oh, let's go a little bit more. I'll bring it back. And I totally forgot the flash. We don't do that. So here I've got a piece of, this is, I can find it right. This is a 1.5 millimeter flat Mirage stencil, but just wide flash is all you want. And we're going to, now for the old Instagram post, I tied it on this side. So I did like this, just so I didn't have to deal with someone saying, which way do you think it needs to be? Shouldn't that be on the other side? But when I'm just tying these for like regular fishing, which is what we're normally doing, I just tie it on the other side because you don't have to worry about the hook point as much. And now I'm going to take and flip it back over, get my flash out of the way, put it in my material holder. Well, maybe I will. Now I'll take our peacock and just start wrapping nice little wraps here. The painter would say nice little happy wraps, just like that. And if you want it thicker, and that looks fine right there. So we'll just for the fun of it, we'll go one more time. But if you want it thicker, you can go over it again. Go over it until you just can't stand it anymore. So I've just got a couple locking wraps in there. I'll cut that off.
You got a question?
So instead of the flash, you use Swiss straw. Use it blue done. It works awesome. I have not used Swiss straw, but I have definitely tied these with no flash, and they work pretty much just as well. So so you see I got kind of a loose wrap there. I'm pulling the flash kind of tight and pull it down. Got a couple wraps. Now, whether using Swiss straw, what's up, Truman? That's a good question, Dan, though. You can see how it's got the nice little wing case there. Use flash, use Swiss straw, use a synthetic thing, or don't use anything. Just use UV resin. And I've got a good tip that one of my friends told me the other day. They'll tell you in just a second. So I've got 2 or 3 wraps locking that in. I'm going to pull the wing case back and do another couple wraps. And that just gets that facing towards the rear. So it's kind of locking it in a little bit. And then nick it, pull it off, and that's on there. So now we've got our fly that could fish just fine, just like that. It's all, maybe if I squunch down a little bit, you'll see it better. But I mean, that's a pretty good looking fly, if I do say so myself. All right, so let's talk about partridge. And partridge is absolutely beautiful. We love really nice partridges. If you get a chance to find one that has the beak on it, that usually means it has the whole neck. Not usually, it always means it's got the whole neck on it. And as with most birds, up here are the smaller feathers, and as you go down, the bigger feathers. But most of the time, when you find a Hungarian partridge, you only get like this much of it. Which all this is great, and this part's what I used for the tail of one of the flies that I did. But it can be kind of hard to get really small stuff. Even though this is a size 14, because it's a jig hook, it is a smaller shank than a standard nymph hook. And getting the really small flies, it can be difficult. Getting the feathers correct for the small flies can be difficult. Here's one that Craig Matthews shot. That it as well has, I think it's got the beak. If not, it's like right, that's the face of it right there. And you've got all the small stuff, and that's nice because you get this. But when you're looking at Hungarian partridges, you really need to try to find as much of this as you can. Because even though these, what's up, Chris? Even though these are important, these are equally as important. And if you don't get a lot of this stuff right here, then as nice as this is not near as usable as the cape of the bird. So we'll just grab this one because this is what I've got right here. And we'll find a feather that we think looks about right. We're going to go with a pretty small one. Hopefully I didn't just, yeah, I did. Can't stand it when that happens. I pull off two. I'm like, oh gosh. Sit there and they'll be there until I sneeze. So we got our little teeny tiny feather. So let's switch over to the hook again. I'm so glad everyone is saying hello to everyone. Is Joe in here? Did I miss Joe?
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, well, good. And for those of you all that are not chatting and everything, get on here and say hey and tell us where you're from. So we've got the feather here. So we got the good part. We got the fluff. So I'm just going to pull off this fluffy part and hopefully I don't break the stem as I'm doing it, because we don't want the fluff in there so much. So now we've got the good part of the feather here. So because this is pretty darn small, if we look at the length of the fibers, you can see kind of how far they're going to go back. Yeah, there we go. See how they still go back pretty far. But it's still a small one. You can use hackle pliers or tweezers. I'm going to grab a pair of tweezers here and just grab, not like real far by the tip, but pretty close to the tip, and pull it all back. So see how I did that? So I'm going to pull it back one more time. Now I've got this little bit there showing. So we're going to, even though this is the original version, we're still going to cheat on this a little bit. I'm going to hold it at an angle, put a loose wrap in, pull it tight, and pull that feather just a little bit. So you can kind of see what it looks like as it's there. And pull everything back. I'm going to do a couple more wraps. And if I want to, I can get in here and trim this out. But normally, I would probably just leave that in there. It don't bother me too much. Let's get everything out of there. And now we grab our hackle pliers, and we just want one good turn of partridge in here. So we'll be kind of careful with it. Use our fingers, and just like I said before, move the feather through your fingers, not your fingers through the feather. We get one wrap around, spin that, and that's fine. And if there ends up being no fibers on the bottom, that's 100% okay. So I'm going to pull everything back. Oh, there she is. Must be a late night walker out tonight. There we go. So that is, what's up, Steve? You're about to be featured in just a second with your gnome work. So there we got our nice little one wrapped soft hackle. I'm going to put, I'll take that one out. I'm going to take my Sally Hansen's. And if you want to, and a lot of people will put weight in these, put some lead-free wire wraps in there. That is completely fine. A lot of people that I know will do multiple variations, so they'll have some with weight, some without additional weight. There we go. And the trick I was going to show you earlier, got one little piece there. So the trick I was going to show you earlier is our friend John Tidlow that was suggesting that we would do this fly this evening. He puts UV resin on the wing case of the ones that he has weighted versus the ones that he hasn't weighted, so he can tell in his fly box what which ones are weighted or not. So that's, he said some people put pink thread on them, change the color of the thread, but I've purposely made this fly really thin, so it's not as it's going through the water, the bulkier it is, the slower it's going to sink. So as opposed to adding weight and making it bulky, I kept it really thin, so it's still not going to sink as fast as one with weight on it, but it's not going to be trapped as much as one that has a ton of dubbing on it. And when you get to the bead, your dubbing is the same size as your bead. So this is about as traditional of a guy's choice hare's ear as you can get. So I hope you enjoyed that one. But now I'm going to tie one that I don't know exactly what color I'm going to do. And I'm pretty sure I know we're going to use quail, but we're going to completely do it differently. But before I start that, Katie has some pictures that she would like to show. So while she's getting this pulled up, Equisnan said, if you use that as a dropper fly, what would be the top fly? Got to be a floater. I'll use it Euro nymphing. So I'll use this as a bottom with a rainbow warrior up top, or just a regular soft tackle up top. Depending on the conditions, if I was doing a dry dropper, the fly wouldn't have to be super buoyant. Like, it doesn't have to be a chubby Chernobyl, but you're right. It would have to be something that was a little bit, a little more buoyant than maybe a size 18 Adams. But yeah, so like what's that one that I'll think of it here? The hippie stomper. That'd be a good one to throw with this one. If I could choose one, it would be the hippie stomper. So, or even a Lecky Kate would be interesting to throw with this, but that would be more subsurface. So Katie is going on with the pictures and focusing on Steve Yates to start off with. So take it away, Katie.
Right. So the first one that I have is Steve Yates, and his troll reminds me of the trolls that I like that have the hair that sticks up, the little troll dolls from the 90s. But his is a wooden one. His looks more like authentic Norse troll. And of course, the beautiful little flies surrounding that we tied 2 weeks ago, right?
Yep.
2 weeks ago.
The GTH variant from Charlie Craven.
That's right, the GTH variant. And I like the colors that he used for the body. It looks really cool. So thank you, Steve. And MD Trout Bum, another version here with some really cool colors of hackle and wings and tail. And then Ken B sent us a couple of pictures. This one is from last week's where Jesse was on the show and did sort of like a grasshopper type fly. And then this one is another smaller soft tackle version. And we have a couple from Jimmy Root. Really beautiful colors used here on Charlie's fly. And then a different version here. And then from Barry D, we had a few different pictures that he took of Jesse's fly last week.
He did a good job with the legs on those.
Absolutely. They look great. So I want to make sure that I get these. And again, if you'd like to share a photo on the show, you can tag us on the photo on Instagram. Make sure you tag in the photo. Or you can email it to us at demuthflyfishing@gmail.com, and we'll share it on the show. So there you go, guys. Thank you so much again for your pictures. I love seeing them. And now we'll get back to the time.
Get back to the original show. So if John Tidlow's still on, so John was the one who that from Iceland. What was from Iceland, Steve?
The troll.
The troll was from Iceland, not Norway.
Well, okay.
It was close.
Up north.
Close.
Yeah.
Wasn't like
Northern.
It was from Kentucky or anything.
No.
So John Tidlow's a buddy of ours that we fished with for a little bit, and went muskie fishing with him a few weeks ago. And he's the one that suggested we do the guy's choice hare's ear. And I used to fish that fly all the time And I haven't fished in a while. Blow torches kind of took over and everything of my fly box anyway. And haven't fished in a while. So big thanks to John for suggesting it. And he sent me pictures of his flies. If you're ever in the Southwest Virginia area and you fancy yourself to go to a cool fly shop, Virginia Creeper Fly Shop is where John can be found. But thankfully, just 4 or 5 times a month. So thanks to John for suggesting this. And if any of you all have a fly that you find successful that you want us to tie live, reach out and let us know. So let's do kind of a more of a cheat version of this fly, because that's kind of a pain having a hare's mask and all that stuff, trying to get a tail with that. It's no fun. But we're going to start with the same hook. And this is where Katie can take a nap for a second, because this is about as much fun as watching someone put a bead on a hook. And big thanks to everyone who submitted their flies. Like I said, we like seeing them. And if you don't know how to submit your flies, then let us know. We'll tell you. All right, so we've got our hook in the vise. We're going to start with the same thread. And we'll show you a couple little tricks here. Pull it off. Try to get that little tag there down so you can't see it, although I can see it, so I'm sure you can. There it is. Now we're good. Good-ish. How about that? All right, so for the tail, as opposed to doing your regular old tail, I'm going to use the same quail skin that I used last week. I'm trying not to drop too much stuff. And I've got one of the feathers from the bottom here that I pulled off. And I'm going to get a nice little chunk. Pretty good sized chunk. Pull it off. And when I pulled it away, switch over to the hook. I pulled the stem away from the fibers. You see how my butt ends are all nice and lined up. So when I bundle them together, my tail, the tip should be lined up as well. And that's it. Speaking of beads, a new jig. Tyler, I have both slide beads and jig bombs. Do you have a preference? I would say jig bombs if I had to choose between the two. I just don't. I'm actually running low on beads right now. So I need to get some more. But if I had to choose, jig bombs, but they're quite a bit more expensive. So just saying, I missed after Gary. I missed that whatever comments those were. So I would say if you got them, jig bombs are better because it's more weight for the size and it gives you a little bit more hook shank. So I'm going to grab it by the tips because remember, we don't want, this is what we don't want for all of you all watching, is that to be our tail. Okay. Now I'm exaggerating it a bit, but there's a lot of times that when I see people tie nymphs, tie them like that, and I'll make it go down so it looks a little bit better, but that's the tail right there. And the tail does not, and will it fish? Yes, absolutely it'll fish. Will fish bite it? Probably. Does it make that big of a difference? Probably not. But if you want to do it kind of somewhat right, get it short, and then look at it and be like, okay, so we're wanting more that length. So about the hook gap is what we're looking for. Now I'm just going to do the same thing, work my way up. So I'm not having to harvest the tail or anything from the hare's mask. And I think John Tidlow was the first guy that told me about Tailwater Fly Co. in Bluff City being a good place to go to. So just FYI. So we got our tail in there now. You can't see it much because of my shirt background, but it's actually, now look at it on the TV, it's a touch long, but we'll call it good for now. Work my thread back just a couple wraps. I'm going to take my tippet out, put it in my mouth, and get some more to flash. Like I said, use whatever you want. You can use Crystal Flash. You can use Crystal Flash is a good a good what the heck is that? I lost that off of something. I don't know what I lost it off of. Um, Crystal Blast is a good ribbing. You just don't want it very thick. And I'm using, oh, what is this stuff called? Someone can tell me in just a second. Right here. This stuff. Get it at a craft store.
Glimmer something.
It's not Glamour Madeira. It's something else.
Shimmer.
Here in honor of the Hare.
Shimmer string. Shimmer ribbon.
You're getting close. All right. Loose wrap.
Silky.
Length. Sulky. Sulky.
Thank you, Mike Seymour.
Mike, he said silky. I think it's sulky tinsel, but Mike got us going the right way. Okay.
The right way.
So
close enough.
So same thing. I want to pull my. If you'll just hear me burp, I really apologize. I'm gonna pull the. If you go to the tying this part, will it show my left hand? That won't really. So what I'm doing is I'm holding the flash down, and I'm holding the tippet up. I'm holding it with one hand like this, so you can't really see what I'm doing. But I'll switch back over to the, oh shoot. If I pull really hard, I will pull it out like I just did. All right, we'll switch back over to the hook. Thank you. All right, so the tippet's up. So when I make a wrap, it's going to push that tippet down. And my flash is down. So when I make a wrap, it's going to pull it up. So what I want to do is get that all on one side, or opposite sides anyway, and do my best not to break my thread. So you can see how this perfectly one's on either side. And hey, John Tidlow did give me a hard time because I only broke my thread 3 times a couple weeks ago when we were live. So now we're up to one time. So we'll start my thread back. Thankfully, there's not a big tag or anything hanging off, so I don't worry about cutting it off, I don't think. All right. So someone said olive is a good color of theirs. And I'm going to grab, if I can find it. Here we go. We'll use rabbit's foot dubbing because I think Katie was like, well, what about rabbit's foot? Or she said something like that. And we'll use caddis green because these will work good as a caddis variation as well. So just, I like to use tweezers to pull that out, get started. Pull out my little bit there. And now, once again, keep the dubbing thin. And we're going to make a nice thin dubbing noodle with this caddis green snowshoe wrap. Now, usually when you find, not usually, but the Nature Spirit stuff anyway, the rabbit's foot doesn't have flash in it, and the hare's mask does. Now, typically, the hare's mask is a little spikier, and it'll have a little bit of like antron or something in it, which I like the sparkle in there. But since we've got the rib, we don't really need the sparkle. But I like the bugginess of it. But they're both fine. I mean, if you get rabbit's foot or hare's mask, both are fine. Just know that the typically the rabbit's foot's not going to be quite as spiky. All right, we'll pull this back all the way there. So our dubbing starts, pull that tail up. So our dubbing starts right there by the tail. Like I said, we're keeping this nice and thin. Slight taper is good. So just like that. So it might look really big, olive, tan, gray, and black, says John. Keep your, and you know, when you look online at different variations of this, they don't ever say all these different colors. So That's the fun thing about tying your own is you can get whatever color you want. If Chris Harris is still on, he'll agree with me that purple just it doesn't work at all. So don't tie purple because there's no way that would work. And I don't know if anyone's ever tied a purple God's Choice Hare's ear. And all I'm doing is the same thing I've done before, just bobbin cradle over, grab my tippet or my other stuff, pull it around. I mean, it really doesn't add much to the tying process doing that, but it adds quite a bit of durability. And the reality is the fish's teeth are an issue, but our hemostats are the biggest culprit of getting tearing over flies. So if you'll just watch your hemostats, you don't really need to do that too often. And if you can catch a couple dozen fish on one fly, and when it finally breaks, just tie another one. No, Chris, you're right. Do not buy purple. So you see, we got this nice little, in pretty quick order. We've got a nice tail on there, nice dyed hare's mask or rabbit's foot or snowshoe, something or other dubbing, which is perfect. If you want to, you can get a piece of Velcro, and we could kind of brush that out a little bit, get it extra buggy. Don't need to, because when the fish eat it, they'll dig it out a little extra. And as opposed to using, I've got to find it, as opposed to using the peacock, I'm going to go with my favorite JD Olive. And if you haven't gotten this yet, and if our John with Tailwaters, if y'all don't carry this, the JD Olive is my favorite color. But really, just
how did they come up with that color?
Oh well, the JD stands for something. I don't know.
Interesting.
Purple anything is a two. It is, Dan. You're right. And Michael's laughing at us about purple is just for funsies. That's just for, it's just Instagram people like the purple. The fish definitely don't. But a good peacock color is fine. But I'm gonna pull off, try to get just a little bit of this because this will make her. Hey guys, you almost had me forget again. And if I had forgotten it, it'd been okay. But this time I'm gonna tie it on like it's a fishing fly. I'll tie that wing case right on top. Except I'm actually gonna capture it. Here we go. I'm not gonna worry about trying to get it on the other side. Because my 2 cents on where the wing case is. Okay, purple. I've never seen purple at Jack Daniels. Loop USA. I think I know who you might be. Yes, it is Jack Daniels. You're correct, Loop USA. This is the Jack Daniels variation. It works up here, off color, any earth tones. I mean, guys, it doesn't. As opposed to coming up with colors that work, would it be better to come up with colors that don't work? Like, do not tie it in fill in the blank, because I'm tying it in chartreuse right now, and that's what is it Bill Dance that said, if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use. I mean, good grief. And because this has some sparkle in it, if you can really see it, you don't even have to put the wing case on if you don't want to. But I really like John's idea of the see how that looks. Yes, nice. Of having a different way, whether it be a thread color. I'm gonna try to pull this stuff, all the legs and stuff back a little bit. I feel like I could use a little bit more dubbing there to make that a little more pronounced, but I'll leave that off. Don't tell anyone. To either use thread or use the UV resin. To that way you can tell which flies are weighted, which ones are not. Because the reality is that this is going to sink fine. There's going to be times when you want to be able to get it down quicker. I'm just trying to nick this, so it'll come right off. And to be able to know easily which flies in your fly box have extra weight in them versus ones that don't, that is pretty nice. So I'm going to use that same Velcro, kind of pick that out a little bit. And once again, you could just fish this just the way it is. Because if you're asking me, Funsies and Euro nymphing Loop USA. JD is poison between the orange minerals and the nan. I missed the last part of it. Okay, so remember how I said before about the partridge? Let's switch back over to the side here. So the partridge, I've really picked that one from way up top, and it wasn't a touch long, it was just right. But you typically don't get a lot of super short ones, right? You don't get the beak, so you don't get those short ones. So this is that quail, the same one I used last week, and I'll show you a trick. I don't know if I'll have time to tie a whole nother one, but I'll show you a trick in a minute. So I just grabbed one right about there, and this one might even be too small. I don't know. But we're going to do the same thing. We'll pull off the fuzzies and leave the good stuff. Kind of do the same thing. Pull off a lot of times when you pull off the feather from the skin, there'll be a piece of fat or a piece of skin or something right here, right on the tip. Either pull that off or cut it off, because your hackle pliers, regardless what kind of hackle pliers you use, when you pinch it, sometimes that'll slip through and you kind of get some of that junk on your hackle pliers, and it can be not the best. So I'm going to switch here, grab my pliers, or my, what is it called? Yeah, those. And I'm just going to pull this back. So let's switch back over to the thing. Tweezers, there you go. So I'm holding my tweezers, pull this back, pull this up. So if you want to, you can cut this and make a nice little triangle. Sorry, you can cut this and make a nice little triangle. So if I cut it right here, what would be remaining would be a nice triangle you tie in with. And that is completely fine if that's what you want to do. But like I said, this is going to be kind of a quick one. So we're just going to tie it in like this, pull it to length, and I pull it just a little bit so there's a little bit of extra stem sticking out. I pull everything back. I'm going to put 3 wraps in because that'll really lock everything in. And there's a little bit sticking out there, and I'm just going to leave it because once we get done, you won't be able to tell it's there. This is kind of the guide tie of this fly. Pull all this back. We'll do one. See how there's not much sticking out from the top. Not much yet, anyway. Pull this around. And we actually had quite a bit left over. But there's 2 wraps. Put a couple more wraps in. So is that Shane or is that Gary that we're seeing on here? And I will pull everything back one more time. And see how I've got my thread kind of in front of the bead, and that's going to help kind of lock or push everything back. Now's not the time to break your thread, if you can choose. What's up, Joe? So when I harvested my quail, do I need to leave the beak on them? You know, the beak is not very good for tying. It's good for like when the kids are looking at your flies and being like, "Ooh, look at this! Look at the beak." But the feather's right next to the beak, right? Not the fuzz, not like the actual like teeny tiny stuff. But when I'm looking to buy a skin, if it has a beak on it, that means that it has absolutely everything possible that can be used on it. So I've got that on there, and that's probably good for the red. So cut that off, pull that off. And now we've got, and remember, less is more. I can't stress this enough. This is 1 wrap of hackle. Any more, and in my opinion, that would be too much. If you start putting a whole bunch of hackle on it, that's where the lead comes in handy to help it get down. But this is very thin, very light, no big deal. But it's, you know, that's pretty much the way you want it to look. And a good rule of thumb or a good thing to think about is I would rather it be under hackled than over hackled, because when it gets wet and all this comes down, you want that body and the ribbing and everything to show through. And this is more like legs, or it's going to resemble like hate to say cocoon, but it's going to resemble if you've seen your fly wet right out of the water, it kind of makes like a teardrop look, and you kind of get those bubbles and stuff that are captured in there. And if your hackle is so thick, well, okay, save the packer for Steve. That's right. There you go, Joe. Thank you. Dan, like fly number 2 the best. For construction projects and legit. Good. I'm glad we're all in good company. But if you put too much hackle on there, when it gets wet, it covers up all your work, and you may as well not have had a nice little body because it's just covered up in the hackle. Not to mention it does slow the sink rate, which in some cases is good. You want it to be slowed down. So we're approaching an hour, but I want to show one quick trick. Figure out where to put this. If you don't have switch over to the side here. If you don't have a nice little styrofoam cup, and in my case, it is an official Yeti. You need to get one because I usually use it to. This is a Tim Flagler hack, but I'll stick it on. That's where I keep flies that I'm recently tied, and then of course there's plenty of like little cups and stuff here and there. But let's say you don't have a properly sized hackle, and you want to do this. It's not a problem. We did a whole show on this a year, 2, 3 years ago about using dubbing loop, and you can definitely. Charlie Craven has a good video using dubbing loop. But this is one I cannot remember the guy's name that I learned this trick from. And it's not going to look quite as good as actually wrapping the hackle. It's not like CDC that it just looks killer. But we'll just throw some of this dubbing on, make a little dubbing ball, pretend like we just tied the whole fly, and we'll throw a little dubbing ball on. And like I said, the JD Olive, the Jack Daniels Olive, I can't stress enough, is the length of it. Because some of the scud dub is pretty long, and not that's a bad thing, but for the flies that I'm tying, the length of this is perfect. You don't have to cut it down or anything. It's just right. So we're going to come up, we'll build our little thorax here. That's all I'm trying to do is build a nice thorax. So we've got our, you'll switch over to we'll probably have to go back. So I'm going to grab a partridge. And so where my finger is where that beak that Joe was talking about. Oh, Ore, what do you say ooh nice for? Which one's ooh nice? Sort of built for new quail hutch today. Ooh. Yes, Joe. Maybe you can send us pictures. We'll share them next week, or send them on your show. And if you haven't checked out Joe and Jeff Rowley on their little weekly show, check them out. They're a lot of fun to watch on Thursday nights. If you don't know, really, if you don't know, a lot of the people on here, good friends of ours. We hang out with you guys and everything. All right, so I just pulled off a random feather that's way too big. So here's one of the nice characteristics that, if I could remember the guy's name, he's got a book, and we've got the book. I think it's called Tying Soft Hackles. But we met him at the Atlanta Fly Fishing Show about 8 or 9 years ago. But the nice thing about partridge is, unlike, I've got here we go. Since everyone's busting on purple, here we go. And this will work great for this. I should have done one with this bird as well. But switch over to the vise, please. So when I pull this up, see how they're all kind of tapered? They don't. Well, it kind of looks like it does, but you just have to trust me. The tips are, but most of these here on the side, they're tapered, so they're not going to come perfectly straight. So that kind of looks like it does, but that stem is really thick. You're not going to be able to wrap that the way I'm getting ready to do. Most birds won't do this. So on the partridge that I just had, this one I just pulled off, you see how these are, it's not perfect, but see how the tips are kind of straight across. So here we go. See how they're straight across right there, kinda. So when I pull them up, a 40-foot ash that split next week, Truman will be able to help you out. But East actually South Bug. Really great. Thank you, Bill. Tim Camisa. I'm going to talk about Tim in just 1 second. So see how the tips are lined up perfectly right there. So like I said, this is kind of the trick if you don't have the right size hackle. So I'm just going to set this down like this to where it's roughly the correct length that I want, which is about there. And we're going to pretend like the fly's tied, right? And I'm going to pinch it and do kind of a loose wrap, another loose wrap, and work it around. Now I would want to thin this out quite a bit. We'll do that. We'll thin it out just a bit like this. I just broke the tip out.
In a few minutes, would you show Tim Camisa's book, please?
Yep, I'm getting ready to. So I was saving him. I wasn't saving him until the end, but so now we've got that there. I'll push it around, work it, pull it tight, put another one, pull this back, couple wraps. And really simply, and this is very poorly done, but and
that was super poorly done.
So
Poor
now
execution.
You can see I use a large feather. Bad example, but I use a large feather and I've got it the right length. If I would tie that in normal palmered wrap, the fibers have been way back here, been way too long. So if it were me, I'd probably have it be a little bit thinner, so a little sparser. But the length's right on it, and that would be totally fine. So that's a neat little trick if you don't have the right if you don't have the right size hackle, and that'll work with a lot of different things. If you don't have partridge to do that trick with, you can always put just about any soft hackle in a loop. So let's switch over to the side or to me for a second. So Katie and I were super thrilled this week when we finally got our copy of Tying Euro Nymphs by the one and only Tim Camisa. And
Thanks, Tim.
There's two neat things about this. Number one, he signed it, which is pretty cool. And yours truly and Katie are mentioned at the very beginning of it. But the neat thing about this is looking at the fly we just tied. Now, this is not I don't know if the word traditional is even right, but this the fly we just tied would not be considered a Euro nymph, because Euro nymphs are designed to get down quick and get in the zone really fast. This has got that chunkier tail on it. It's got the big soft tackle on it, all that stuff. But if you look at a lot of the flies that he's got, especially the blowtorch here on the cover, there's a lot of similarities between the flies that Tim's tying and the fly we just tied. But with that said, you stopped at the right time. With that said, just for the fun of it, because I'd say there's probably two people watching right now.
Yeah, Tim and Truman.
Tim and Truman are the only ones on. So maybe it'll be Truman, but I'm just kidding. I'm sure there's a bunch of you guys. But whoever, if you have this book, great. If you don't, you can look it up and look at Tim's channel and find one of the flies that he ties. And if you want us to tie one of the flies that's featured in this book, let us know. And maybe next week we'll pull this out, because I'm always, a lot of these flies I've tied a bunch, I've fished a bunch, but I'm always looking for new flies to tie. And it'd be really cool if you guys were like, hey, there's fill in the blank fly, and I would like to, and it's in this book, or it's one of Tim's ones that he's tied on the show. Can you guys tie it live? And we'll bring it up. So, and Jeff Rowley is still here. So see, there's more than two people.
Have you been reading this thing that Nan is going to make?
I was looking forward to Wednesday. Thanks, Mike. I have not. What is Nan making?
She's a boss. She has 40 feet of ash. She's going to split next week. And then, let's see. I'm trying to go back to what she called it.
It's the first day of spring, Dan. So it's coming up. And if
Wait,
y'all
you
don't know,
mentioned it.
March 20th is always the first day of
quail-
spring. Quail hutch.
Yeah, quail hutch.
Joe's making a quail hutch. Is Nan
Oh, I
making
thought
one
Nan
too?
was making a quail hutch.
Um,
Nan
so-
wants to know if you can Euro nymph with a spay rod.
Can you urinip with the spare? I mean, I guess you could urinip
guess
with
you
about
could.
anything. I mean, people
I
were
don't know.
urinipping before urinipping was a thing. So I don't know if they call it tight line, but
Yes, Nan, I'm the 26th.
the guys in the Smokies, they kind of laugh like when you talk about urinipping because they're like, we've been at that a long time. But I haven't dug into this book because we just got it today. But it looks like a really, really good, like all-inclusive book, not just from a pattern aspect, but also how to fish it. So it looks really, really cool. And I open up the book, it goes right to Lance Egan, and I've heard he can catch a fish or two. So if Lance is featured in
He's
it,
all right. He's pretty good.
Tim's whipped it up. It's got to be a good fly. So definitely check this out. We'll be featuring some flies out of it. If there's one you want us to see, let us know.
And if you guys haven't met Tim at a show or seen any of his presentations that he does, he is a pro and so professional and such a nice guy. Check him out the next time you get a show.
There, and Tim, you can send the check. Just address it to Katie.
No, that's true. That was for free.
So you have firewood nymph with a cane pole. Yep, that's Truman. You're right. The question in the Smokies, you're nymphum. You're a nymphum. That's right, Michael. Tom Fly, get flies ever tied green. Go give it a shot. Yeah, I mean, may as well. So yes, Tim, you need to come to the Atlanta show. Truman has been quite a bit, and you and Truman need to get together because Truman's an awesome dude. But unfortunately, when it comes to the shows, it's a great time to go and say hello to someone. But if you want to like sit down and actually like hang out with them, it can be tough to get. You should get your nose out of the trash bin. It can be tough to get the time. Is anyone going to Lancaster? That's the next. I think that's the 15th. So this weekend. We are not. It's we've got the kids this weekend, so we're going to be hanging out with them, running around. We're not going to be in Lancaster. Ore, I think, is. So Joe and Ore need to get together. Joe, just look for the guy with the cat on his back. That's Ore. Are you going to bring your cat this time?
I wish I could have a cat to bring.
When Sega's ankle breaks off, he will be there. Tom Fly will go to Lancaster. So if you're going to Lancaster, check out Sergeant Bass Fisher and Jeff Rowley tomorrow night and ask them questions. Y'all can definitely hook up with them there.
And they're on Instagram.
Their show is just on Instagram. And if you're over Lancaster, so Lancaster is going to be Tim Truman doesn't come to Atlanta someday.
Yeah.
Another great lot. Thanks a lot, Tim. We really appreciate it. And for those of you that live in Colorado, hopefully Katie and I will get our scheduling worked out on our end, and we're not going to like spoil anything, but Marley's My Flocks is what it rhymes with, and we were hoping to tie there April 12th and hang out, and we'll all be there except for this little girl right here. She really wants to go, but I don't think she's gonna make it. All right, I have jabbered on enough, guys.
Yeah.
Katie and I really enjoy this evening and hanging out with you all and just all the comments and the questions, everything. If you got any questions or there's anything you'd like for us to tie, like I said, this fly was one that that our friend John Titlow asked us to tie because he has a lot of success with it, and as have we. So if there's something you'd like to see us tie, or if you have any questions, please let us know. But I will bid you all adieu and turn it over to Katie to say goodbye. See you guys.
Everybody have a great night. Have a great weekend. Let's pray for some good warm weather coming up so we can all catch some fish. Get them out. Bye, everybody.
See you guys. Thanks so much.